All right, we're cooking. You know, I put enough cheese in here. I'm pretty sure. Put a can of chickpeas. Put a couple of pieces of cooked chicken. I put a little mozzarella. I put a little salsa in here, and I put the cheese in first. So you know the cheese is just getting soft. This big piece of cheese, but you know, just mix it up and melt it. That's my cooking style here. Non-stick with $1.25 McCormick. You know, and I don't know. I think this is my favorite thing for cooking with. Oh my god, bro! And I just have it on low. So the idea is if you cook it slow enough, if you cook it slowly enough, the idea is that um, you get better consistency if you cook it slowly. So one technique, is to spend more time cutting the cheese into pieces, and another technique is just put on low and get it on heat and give it time. Step away. If you're not in a hurry, it's easier, right? If you're just making this for yourself, you just turn it on low, you put in your cheese, and then you just start putting stuff on top of it. And then if you got a big piece of cheese, in theory, I guess if it got to be too cheesy, you could take the cheese out and put it back in the fridge or something and get just the right cheese ratio. But there is kind of a certain ratio of cheese because the cheese is just going to thicken up everything else you have. So I poured the water off of the chickpeas so I didn't have to use as much cheese to get the same consistency. But water is going to dilute it and cheese is going to thicken it up. And you put the spices on it. But and when I cook this, it actually reminds me there's something called a hibachi grill, and there's a format where you can go and just get the raw ingredients and then you take it and someone else cooks it up. This is somewhat similar, except this isn't stir fried. I'm just heating up cheese with stuff, and it's a lot easier than stir fry, honestly. But the main thing you want to think about when you're cooking this way really is high quality cheese and thick enough salsa. I don't want to say high quality salsa, but you don't want bad quality salsa. But I use the Great Value salsa at Walmart after trying it all. I was using the Bobby Salazar salsa for a while, and any salsa that you would use with chips directly is probably too expensive. You should just manage the spices separately and just get a mild salsa, and then you can spice it up however you want. Oh, that's chicken I was trying to cut in half. And then, here's my customer. They get leftovers. I split it with them when I'm not that hungry, but this isn't. I'll probably eat half of this and split the other half for my dogs, and I'll let them lick my pan when I'm done too. But they hear this pan hitting the stovetop, and then they come over here and wait patiently. Normally the other one's over here too. I got two dogs, but and when it comes to spices, that's probably the last thing you need to add, because the first things you need to add is the stuff that needs to be warmed up. So add the cheese, add the chickpeas, add the chicken, the stuff where the center needs to get cold. The chicken's probably the most concerning because it needs to be heated slowly enough so that the center gets warm. So you might put your biggest pieces in first. So I put my big piece of cheese in on this one. But put your biggest pieces in first, and the stuff that doesn't need to be heated, you can put that in last. And if you want to, you can put some grated cheese on as a topping and give it a little bit of visual appeal. But also, one reason why you might want to wait to put in the spices to the last is because the spices will often control the coloring, and you might want to judge the color as you spice it up when it's going to change the color. And one thing I've found is that sriracha sauce, a lot of people that say they don't like sriracha sauce do like it as long as it's not too much. So, I always put a little bit of sriracha in anything, as long as I don't think anybody's ever allergic to that, but I haven't been feeding anybody yet. But I'm just saying, sriracha's definitely going to make this better. Let's get some of that sriracha. Let's see what we got here. Now I've just got a First Street, which is a brand that I get here at Smart and Final, but you don't need a brand name on sriracha, in my opinion. It's a specific kind of pepper that you're looking for, but that's about how much I'd put in here. And you can put any kind of spice you want in there. You know, there's really no rules. If it tastes good, do it again. But this is a Montreal chicken. Totally not appropriate for here, but you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna eat it. I had that before, and it wasn't that bad. But you know, Indian spices like a dal makhani, like an Indian spice would be appropriate for this, and I found it works really well. But you know, experiment, because half the fun with doing this kind of thing is coming up with your own stuff. But yeah, we've got a Montreal chicken spice in here. We've got a sriracha spice in here. And, you know, I'll add a green chili, but you can see some of that texture in the spice in there. But yeah, add that in last. You don't want to be putting your spices in too soon. I don't think so. I mean, if it's soupy enough, it doesn't matter. But I don't know. I would like to have some. I think that's good, man. I'm hungry. How about that? We're done. All right. Thanks for watching.